the ranking member on oversight.
That's
for
correct.
5 minutes.
Mr. Bishop's
Mr. Bishop.
subcommittee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to follow up on a couple of questions. One was to the director. At the end of Congressman Higgins' testimony or questioning, he had a photo with 2 buses on it, and I wasn't able to. We tried to figure out what he was getting at, but it sounded like he was suggesting that there were FBI operatives who were and infiltrated the January, like 2 busloads of FBI operatives who had infiltrated the January 6th raid, and I wanted to give you a chance to clarify on that.
Well, I can't speak to the photo. I mean, I haven't seen the photo before, so I can't speak to the specifics of his photo and what it does or doesn't show. But what I can say, and what I tried to say in response to his questions, is that if somebody is asking or suggesting whether the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources or FBI agents or both, the answer is emphatically not. And to suggest to the contrary, I think, is a disservice to the hardworking men and women of the FBI who bust their tails every day to keep Americans, including everybody up on Capitol Hill, safe.
Yeah, I want to add as well, I used to be an AUSA in this office here in Washington, and actually was handling cases against them while the prosecutions were taking place. I do want to commend your office and the Department of Justice prosecutors for putting together, I guess, like 700 cases, I think, at this point, the vast majority of which have been successful, so I commend you for that. I did want to ask about FISA as well. I'm on Judiciary. You testified about FISA 702. As you know, the time's coming up for reauthorization on that. There are questions about whether the reauthorization should contain some statutory changes that put additional restrictions on your office. I know you've had some objections to that and said that your office has made some internal changes. I wanted to get a sense of hearing what those are, though, before I made a final decision on what I want to do with respect to that bill. There's 2, actually.
Well, I will say 2 things. First, on the impact of the changes, and then what the changes were themselves. The most important thing for this committee and for Congress to take away on the changes we've made is the results of those changes, which have now been found. You don't have to just take my word for it. Look at the FISA court itself. The same FISA judge, by the way, who rightly criticized us earlier, found that our reforms that we've put in place have resulted in...
Yes, but if you could tell us what they are, I'd appreciate it.
So the changes include all sorts of changes to training, oversight, internal oversight, pre-approvals, new accountability.
Let me stop you on that
policies.
one. Pre-approvals. What are the pre-approval requirements that have been put in place now?
Well, there are a whole slew of them. Some have to do with when you have what's called a batch query, when there's a large number of query terms. That's one as an example. Certain kinds of sensitive query terms have to get run all the way up to the level of deputy director. I'd be happy to arrange a more detailed briefing because it is quite detailed.
That'd be
Among
great.
the other changes we've put in place is I created an entire new Office of Internal Audit at the FBI that did not exist before.
Well, let's do this. If you could supplement your testimony with the written, you may have done it someplace else, but if you could send me whatever it is that lays out the details of the changes you've made, I'd appreciate it. And Ms. Abizaid, I hope, okay, I got close. You mentioned 702 in your testimony, but you didn't have anything in your written testimony about it. I was wondering if you could answer the same kind of question. What sorts of changes, or you might think the current law is fine, but if you think the reforms that have been made are sufficient, or what's your position on that?
So I know the Department of Justice is engaged in a robust conversation about what kinds of reforms should be considered. I would only reinforce what I said in my oral testimony, which is that 702 is a vital authority for the CT community, and agility is key to that authority. So anything we do that reauthorizes it and preserves that agility will be incredibly important.
Okay, well, fair enough. If you've got additional proposed reforms you'd like to suggest, please send those in writing too. I've run out of time with respect to a couple of things here, but I did want to end with this. Mr. McCall, and I'm sorry he's not here, but he had a chance to respond to Mr. Goldman, but the aiding and abetting allegation that was directed at you, Secretary Mayorkas, I thought was just inappropriate and incorrect. And I just wanted to register that on the record. I know there have been some disagreements about the way you've run the office and that sort of thing, but I just don't see how that's productive. So with that, I yield back.